This is my Ruger Precision Rifle chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. We're going to be working on developing a round using the Hornady 147 grain ELD Match bullet. I've used this rifle for a lot of shooting so far. I've developed rounds using the 143 grain ELDX made by Hornady. I have developed rounds using the 153 grain A-tips, which I plan on shooting out to a mile later on this year. And the 147 grain I am going to be loading up because the 153 grain are not easily found on the market right now. For optics, I've got the Vortex Viper PST 5 to 25 by 50. I absolutely love this scope. It has a 20 MOA mount plus a 20 MOA built-in rail on the rifle itself. Also with this rifle, I do not use a regular magazine. I use a single shot sled block that just goes into the mag well. The reason that I use that is because I load all of my rounds where it's about 20 thousandths off of the ogive. And with that being said, all the rounds are too long to fit into a standard magazine. I've got the AOL gauge with the 6.5 Creedmoor cartridge that is provided by Hornady. And inserted in it, I've got the 147 grain ELD Match bullet. We will insert this like so. And you want to make sure that that is seated as far forward as possible, because you want to make absolutely sure that the shoulder of the cartridge is against where the shoulder of the chamber is. And then just take and hold the plunger, tighten your AOL gauge, and then remove it out the back. Now, as you can see, the bullet stayed in the rifling of the barrel. That is fine. All you need to do is take a cleaning rod and just give it a light tap. First, I'll remove that. And it'll come right out. And let's get a measurement. So I've got 2.234 inches. 2.234 inches. I'm going to write that down. All right, going to get a second measurement. All right, make sure that the plunger's forward. Tighten down the lock nut. The bullet stayed in the rifling again. That's fine. Where'd that bullet go? Here we go. Put that back in the OAL gauge. And I've got 3.230 inches. 2.230. All right, do it again. All right, get another measurement here. 2.229. And I've got 2.229 again. 2.230. All right, so I took 5 measurements, and they're pretty gosh darn consistent. The first one, however, is 4 thousandths longer than the rest. And I think that may be because I did not have the OAL gauge all the way forward. And like I said, if you don't have it seated tight into the chamber, it's going to give you a different measurement. So the first one was 2.234. The second one was 2.230, 2.229, 2.229, and 2.230. So these 4 are all within 1/1000th difference of each other. So I'm going to use the 2.230 as my actual measurement. And then I'm going to subtract 20 thousandths off of that measurement, which will give me 2.210. The Lapua brass that I'll be loading, the shoulder is at 1.5965 inches. So I'm going to write that down real quick. All right. So that's telling me that there's a difference of 3 thousandths of an inch between where the shoulders are on those 2 different pieces of brass. What I'm going to end up doing, because the Lapua brass shoulder is longer, I'm going to subtract another 3 thousandths of an inch from the 2.21 to give us our actual seating depth to the ogive, which is going to end up being 2.207 inches. I'm comfortable with that measurement. That's what I'm going to go with. One nice thing with the seating depth, this 2.207 does not have to be a permanent thing. It's just a starting point. We will figure out what a good load is, and once we do, we can adjust the seating depth in or out and see if there's any differences in both group size, extreme spread in the muzzle velocity, and standard deviation in the muzzle velocity. Once in a while, you can find that once you have a recipe set, you can adjust that OAL just a little bit one way or another, and you can find it may potentially improve your group size and your consistency. To figure out this recipe, the components that I'm going to be using is Lapua brass with small rifle primer pockets. I'll be using CCI Magnum small rifle primers, number 450s. Superformance powder. Hornady ELD Match grade bullets, 147 grain. Now, normally I would do a ladder test using a few different powders, a few different primers, and see where I can get some flat nodes in that test. Today, because I'm only going to be using one powder, I really don't have a need for that. So I'm just going to be doing 5-shot groups between 42.0 and 43.0 grains of powder. Now, the reason I'm going through this range of powder is I've loaded other rounds that are very similar, like the 143 grain ELDX bullets and the Hornady A-tip 153 grain bullets. So 153 grain versus 147 grain, I really don't see there being too much difference in the powder, and so the range of 42.0 to 43.0 will put me right in that range where I think is going to work just fine. So in this process, the first thing I'm going to have to do is prime all the brass. So I will put all this stuff away and get set up for doing that. I use the RCBS Universal Hand Priming Tool. I like it. It's easy to use and easy to set up. So we're going to have a little change in plan. I was originally going to load this just for my Creedmoor, at this point in time. But my dad also has a Ruger Precision rifle chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. So my brass is right here, all my Lapua brass. It's all primed, ready to go. My dad's brass is StarLine brass. When I purchased the brass, I actually purchased both at the same time, and I machined both at the same time. So they are 100% machined the same. And doing some head-to-head testing, they test out pretty much completely identically. So my plan is I'm going to load up 5-shot groups in 1/10 of grain increments in mine, and I'm also going to do the same with his. With that being said, we'll have like a little head-to-head shoot-off and see which one can perform the best. So I will go ahead and get his brass primed up and into a loading tray, and I'll be back. I've got both sets of brass primed with the CCI 450s, which are the Magnum small rifle primers. On the left is my dad's brass, which is StarLine. On the right is Lapua, which is mine. And I've got ammo boxes for both, and they're both labeled so that I know whose is whose. We're going to start at the bottom of the load spectrum with 42.0 grains of powder. So I'm going to be seating my bullets as I go. I like to do this because I feel it just takes up less time overall. And let's see where we're at. And I've got 2.207 inches. So that is set. And the first bullet is complete. All right, so now we will go ahead and load these up. Double check. .207. right, so the 5-shot group is completed for my dad's Ruger using the StarLine brass. Now I'm going to go ahead and load up the 5 for mine in the Lapua brass. All right, so I've got the 10th one loaded up. All right. So I will do this down the line for every 10th of grain up to 42.9. All right, got both test groups loaded. Got the 5-shot groups for my dad's rifle and 5-shot groups for my rifle. So I'm going to empty out the hopper on the powder dropper and put everything away. Now I cannot wait for range day.